Ready? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to F&I. Are there any changes to the agenda this morning? I'd like to move up the committee discussion on the CDL licensing area and put that up right after the airport or in the airport discussion, so that we don't have to hold Maureen and Mike any longer than they'd like to stay. Anything else? We're an excited group this morning, I can see that. Do we have any public comment this morning? Guess not. Chair's report, I did mention the legislature meeting about the ITCTC meeting that we had on Tuesday or Wednesday, I forgot. Tuesday, I guess it was. And about the a couple of things we learned there. I want to mention too, that Dan is now at the policy committee and wearing two hats. He's the alternate for the county, but he's also the representative from TCAT now. At the
Actually, I'm not the representative from TCAT.
Oh no,
just the county alternate.
Okay.
Frank Proto is supposed to be there for.
Oh well, I saw you on the list they sent out.
Can't explain.
Okay. Well, we're glad to have you there in whatever capacity. Then. The DOT reported that the I think the most of the Route 34 bridge in Lansing has been taken down from what they said. They said they apparently didn't have to blow it up. They were thinking about it apparently, but so how they took it down, I don't know. They talked about a video, but I don't know where that is or how you can see that. So the contractor is moving this right along, trying to get that bridge completed and opened as by the end of next year, like is the DOT schedule. That's pretty much it, other than what I reported the other night. Jason mentioned that he sent me an email this morning, said he couldn't be here this morning, but we're pleased to have Lisa as his substitute, a good substitute. Lisa, do you have something to report to us this morning?
Not much, Mike. The only thing I'll say is the admin staff is busy working on the final draft of the Reimagining Public Safety Report, as Jason mentioned at the legislature meeting, and we'll be able to provide a draft of that to the legislature before it's released publicly. So that's what's people are kind of working around the clock right now on that draft report.
We're going to see that the first part of the week or something? Yeah,
yes, by Monday, if not before, but by Monday.
That's good. Yeah, a lot of those reports are coming out from the counties around the region. I've been reading in the paper and other places that Cortland, they're already not happy with theirs over there. So Cortland, according to Cortland standard, they didn't think it went far enough. So I'm looking very much forward to seeing our report. Thanks to all the people that are working on it. Any questions for Lisa this morning? Let's pick up airport. Mike Hall, welcome.
Good morning, Mike. We have a resolution here, which is part of the cleanup, I guess, of the airport project, if you will. There are some audits and final payments and what have you. And this relates back to phase one and just certifies on behalf of the legislature that the monies were spent appropriately.
Just hear you, Mike. Can you talk up just a little bit?
Certifies on behalf of the legislature that the monies were spent appropriately following an audit by finance.
Shall we go ahead and take that resolution? Someone want to move it? Dan, seconded by Glenn. Discussion on the final payment to Streeter Associates, terminal expansion, phase one. Ready to vote? Okay, Dave,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
I vote yes, so that's unanimous. Anything else you want to talk about, Mike, or can we go into the CDL discussion?
Now we can go into the CDL discussion.
Okay, you want to bring us up to date on where that is? I know you sent us out a map that we had to look at. But why don't you go ahead. Morey, I want to mention that thanks to Maureen Reynolds for being here this morning too. I see her, at least I see her name. And we wouldn't be talking about a CDL test site if it hadn't been for the efforts that Maureen has very early on saying we got to have one of these somewhere in Tompkins County. So.
Well, there's a history of this site potentially being at the airport. And it started off with the idea that we have a temporary construction parking area, which is north of Cherry Road being the road that's just north of the airport fence and the runway, which abuts into Warren Road. Just north of that, there's a pretty good piece of gravel and pavement where we remotely park construction vehicles when the number of people commuting to a job at the airport exceeds our ability to park, in one of the lots. So we thought about turning that into a CDL testing lot, and we did a plan for it a couple of years ago, but that was overcome by events and superseded by TCAT. Overcome by events in that we got the airport terminal construction project and then the fuel farm, and really didn't have the capacity to continue with this project while we were taking care of those high intensity state monitored projects. Meanwhile, TCAT looked at a variety of options, and to my understanding has chosen the airport as a site for relocation, and the site that they chose is the same site we were going to use for CDL testing, which happens to be a very good location for their activity as part of a multi-mode transportation center. As far as we've gotten so far, with a bit of a timeout here for the last year with the pandemic, is that a good place to locate this testing facility is across the entrance road from the New York State DOT building. So it's kind of diagonally across Warren Road from where we are going to place TCAT. There's not much that can be done in that space because of it's in the runway protection zone. So there can't be any significant vertical development, but that fits quite nicely with a pad and a small, I wouldn't want to call it a shack, but a small office to, with an internet connection for the inspector and a briefing room. All that fits within that site. And the pad itself would be roughly equivalent to Sholkoff Field, including the track. It's bigger than a football field, but that's a way for you to gauge the size of the activity we're talking about. What would happen then would be that, as we've discussed in the past with no firm commitments, GST BOCES is interested in using, TST BOCES is interested in using the pad and managing training activity there. DOT would be able to, or DMV would be able to schedule examinations there. It would operate out of think of it as a little trailer type thing, but you've got to have a place to test and have a briefing and debriefing and an internet connection. And that's how that space would be used. We also have an issue with parking for the multi-mode terminal if that comes to pass. And that parking would be back on the other side of Warren Road, on the runway side of Warren Road, between where TCAT is planning on being sited and the airport fence. There's been a long-standing plan to have a kind of a B lot in there, a reliever for the airport parking, which was overwhelmed last year in January and February before the pandemic. And it could also be a little bit of park and ride, and it could also serve the, the bus terminal. So that's the concept. And when we were going to build the pad on the site that TCAT's chosen, we were going to try to do it self-help. We have a lot of fill material on the airport, from millings off the runway, and the Department of Health parking lot removed perfectly good fill and then replaced it. We've got that out here. So we've got a good deal of material that could be used to provide a base. We've got equipment at the airport and equipment in the county highway department. And when we were looking at this a few years ago, we were going to build the base. And then I just asked Suitcoat, they were doing the runway at the time, what it might cost to put a coat of pavement on that. And the answer was $150,000. So in terms of the cost of this project, you're probably looking at $500,000 to go through some studies, citing, not clear exactly what drainage work would be required over there, and how to handle the runoff. That usually takes some kind of a pond. So it's a little more complex project than it was when first envisioned, but I think it's a very important project, considering that right now we have a critical shortage of CDL people, and that's likely to persist into the future. Trucks aren't going away; they're going to become electric in time. But the ability to handle a large rig, to what happens is you go out into the parking lot and put up some of those orange cones. And when I got my CDL years ago, we did that down on Hancock Street, and we used your car that was parked there as the obstacle. That's not the way it's done anymore, thankfully. And so now we need a place where an appropriate obstacle course can be laid out, and people can both train and practice, and then go back and test. So that's pretty much where we're at on this.
Before I open up for questions, I'd go to Maureen and say, Maureen, do you want to remind us of why it's so important that we have the CDL site from DMV's
Well,
perspective?
there's a big shortage of bus drivers and truck drivers right now. And when they do tests now, it's only done regionally. And we could become a regional center for that, which would be great. So people be coming into our county to test here. They don't have enough test sites in the state, and they're kind of backed up because they can't schedule enough tests for people. Eventually, they'd like to have in the beginning 1 or 2 days a week with full day testing. And it would probably go up after, they open it up more regionally. So New York State DMV seemed real excited about the fact that we were back on talking about it again.
And Mike or Maureen, at one point there was some discussion about maybe DMV would have some funding possibly to help us.
I don't know. We have a new commissioner, but it's something, now that it's back on the table, I can bring it up to him and see what they would be willing to do. Mike might have more idea. He's dealt with them, I think, than I have.
Yeah, DMV is not like DOT, where there's a lot of money available. But when I was talking with them a couple of years ago, the idea of $150,000 for paving was, within their appetite. And they're not a multi-million-dollar construction agency, but they have the ability to put some money into projects. So I think that between the self-help component and a little bit of money from DMV and the materials that we have stockpiled on the airport, that's where you start to enter into the zone of feasibility for this. Maintenance on the facility, sooner or later, you're going to have to pave it again. But we did a lot of paving at the airport with the help of the highway department this year. And, it was, again, $100,000 project to do probably as much paving as would be involved in this test pad. And you wouldn't have to pave for, 5 to 7 years probably. So it doesn't have a huge downstream maintenance tag associated with it. And as Maureen stated, it's a project would have immediate value to the community.
At legislature the other night, go ahead, Jeff, you want to say something?
Thanks, Mike. I just want to say a huge supporter of the project. I think it's a great idea. Anything highway can do, let us know. We're happy to help. And it ties into a large void and need for continued CDL licensure of individuals that are interested. It ties into a lot what's going on here at the highway department coming up. So great to hear about it. Thanks, Maureen and Mike, and let us know if we can help.
That's appreciative. Thank you, Jeff. I was going to say that at our legislature meeting the other night, Shauna Black mentioned that she'd received some kind of a communication from Tom Reed about grants that might help us with this. And she was going to send that email out. I haven't seen it. I don't know if others have seen that or not. And I did ask her to send it to Mike Hall and Maureen Reynolds. But we'll take a look at that. We'll see if there's anything we can chase down money there for too that might help us. But let's open it up for questions. Dan?
Thanks. So I was a little late to this conversation. So in the last few days, I've spoken to some people at TCAT to get their perspective and information about this idea. And so I just wanted to mention a few things that I had heard. Well, first of all, TCAT had wrapped this project into the grant that was submitted in 2020 for the project of the airport, the grant that was unsuccessful. It's not known yet. It's still not decided yet whether TCAT's going to submit a grant again this year. So I just wanted to mention that. I had always kind of assumed that a CDL testing facility might be a bit of a revenue generator, but the more I ask, the less likely that seems that that's a part of it. So I just want to make sure people understood that, or if that information is not correct, I'd like to hear it differently. What I was told was that there's basically a $50 fee to get tested. And I don't know exactly, some of that money goes to the state, and some of it goes to a motor vehicle licensed examiner, an MVLE. And it's my understanding that these examiners are in short supply in New York State, and that's one of the bottlenecks of why it's a little more difficult why we're not getting as many licenses tested as we might want. So that would just be another factor to consider here, that if we had another site, that might not solve that problem at all. The sites that we use around here are Rochester, Syracuse, and Elmira. So we are kind of right in the middle of all that, which I could imagine is a good spot to be. In other words, we're not overlapping anybody else too badly. And then the only other thing was TCAT specific. There was a time when TCAT was having some difficulties getting appointments to get their drivers tested. But what was reported to me is that is currently not a problem, that the state examiners love TCAT because our TCAT's training level is very high. TCAT drivers have a 98% pass rate for that test. So at this point, TCAT itself is not having any trouble getting appointments at these other sites. That doesn't speak to the other entities that are looking for CDLs. That's it. Thanks.
But Dan, the person being tested has to take a bus to the area to be tested on. Is that right?
That's right.
Including a licensed driver with them too. So another staff person. And then leave to drive and then take there for the day for the test and then drive back. So.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Oh, Ann, I see your hand.
Thanks, Mike. So both Mikes. So I was wondering for this, I'm looking at trying to cross-reference the map that Mike Hall sent with a Google map. From what I can tell, there's no houses right adjacent to this site. Is that correct? No residential sites or houses?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. The open area around the airport is in something called the runway protection zone. And if you come up and look at the New York State DOT facility, That zone goes all the way down to essentially the surface right off the center line of the runway, and then it slopes up on either side, and the DOT building is just underneath the slope of the protected airspace. So if you move toward the extended runway center line from the DOT building, you're into territory that is not particularly developable. And if it were developable for anything, it would be peripheral parking and or the DMV testing site. When you fly into other big metropolitan airports, you'll often see cars underneath you as you're getting close to the runway. And that's pretty much what that kind of, area of an airport is developable to be, because of no vertical development, and that would be there if there were buildings. So yeah, there's nobody nearby. Also think that this is a relatively low impact.
You're fading a little bit, Mike. Can you talk up a little bit?
This is also a relatively low impact operation. You're not talking about a racetrack or anything like that. You're talking about a couple of vehicles out driving around on a football field.
Would this only be operated during the day? Do we have any idea?
Well, I think you're dealing with, look, to light it and be able to train at night would be considerable more expense, number one. Number two, you're looking at public sector employees doing the testing. They're not going to work at night. You're looking at probably BOCES doing training, maybe TCAT doing training internally for themselves, but those are all public sector people who aren't going to work at night. So this is a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 type operation, as I see it.
I just thinking going along about notifying the neighbors and having a public hearing there. I know we've had some feedback from the DOT's adjacent site. So one last question. So I'm not that familiar with CDL licenses, so I looked it up. So this could be for bus drivers or truck drivers. Is that correct? Commercial truck drivers?
Correct.
So if there was some company that wanted to use it, would that be available for training?
Well, look, I'm not going to be the manager, but I would expect that if one of the freight companies came to us and said we'd like to rent time to train our drivers, that whoever's managing the facility would be amenable to that. But I would go back to what Dan said, and that is I see this as a facility where potential revenue probably equals long-term maintenance expense. It's not a revenue generator, nor does it need to be, because it's adding considerable value to the community, beyond the dollars per se, to have people available to operate. And CDL has a lot of nuance to it. We're talking about the driver training portion of it actually in the vehicle, but there's quite a bit of ground instruction involved too. And I would imagine that might take place at BOCES, for example, which is already set up to do that, hazmat training and a number of other aspects of the license that aren't tested. And this is a practical test of driving skill. So.
Okay, so it'd be for training and testing and just a general comment, not necessarily to you, Mike, but just looking at overall, this could be something that could help local folks gain employment. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I don't believe, look, what's going to change is trucks are going to become electric, but they're going to be just as many trucks as there ever were going forward. And those vehicles, anything of a commercial size, I've forgotten what the weight limit is, 12,000 pounds or something like that. You're going to require a CDL.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Maureen? You lit up.
Nope.
Okay. So if the committee would like to see this thing move ahead, I'm guessing the next step would be to get a some kind of a plan drawn up by CNS or somebody. Would that be right, Mike? And how would we proceed, Lisa, with that, Lisa and Mike, so that we can get some proposals here to see if we could get this done?
Well, CNS is under contract to both the airport and to TCAT, and they're the company that is intimately familiar with the myriad of restrictions, federal restrictions, primarily, and some state restrictions that apply to this piece of ground. You know, I go from awareness to understanding to a plan. Where, you know, awareness, it looks like we've got something interesting here that could work. We've got a place to do it. So the next thing would be to engage CNS professionally to develop the concept further, you know, start to lay out a budget, look at the requirements. The biggest one that always comes up with, you know, with surfaces like this is runoff. And that is a wet area out there. So, you know, there's some engineering work that needs to be done. They've done some already, but my recommendation would be to, you know, to ask them to proceed, and it can be under the airport contract.
Can we get a cost estimate from them?
Yeah,
For the plan?
correct.
Okay. All right. Well, can we let perhaps Mike and Lisa or Jason talk about that and maybe bring it back to us at our next meeting and see how we can move this ahead? Is that all right with everybody on the committee? See Glenn nodded his head. Are you okay with that, Dave? Dave's got a thumbs up. Ann's got a thumbs up. And Dan here, I think, is smiling behind his mask.
I just wanted to say though, you know, remember again that this was wrapped up into the TCAT grant and maybe again, so that might be even make the whole thing even easier, maybe.
Well,
and we'll know more, probably know more in a month.
Okay. Well, it'll further information in a month will help.
And we'll be sure to circle back with TCAT as well to make sure that we're not, that we're in sync and not duplicate. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Anything else, Mike, today? I just wanted to say I read about our airport firefighters responding to a fire in Lansing and knocking it down before the other fire department was able to get there. And I just want to send our thanks and congratulations to your staff who did that.
Thanks. I was actually in Freeville, just off the airport. You could see the column of smoke, and that's quite a long way from the Lansing, from all the fire districts, if you will. So we were able to get there while preserving our federal responsibility at the airport and knock the fire down. The building was pretty fully involved, and you know, it's an example of something we've been doing for a number of years here, whether it's an accident at the corner of 13 and Brown Road, which happens periodically, and what have you, as long as it's close enough that we can maintain the federal response standard. The interest of life safety is is paramount here.
Thank you. Ann.
Thanks. Michael, I was just wondering if you had any overall impression or stats on the ridership. I don't know if you call it ridership, but your
Emplanements. So
emplanements. Thank you.
So at this time a year ago, we were up 20% year over year. We were on target for 120,000 emplanements. In April, we were at 5% of our normal number. That was a pretty precipitous drop. When you look at the airport, you're looking at a $3.5 million budget, give or take, and we lost about a third. Normally, 5 years ago we owed money, and now we've got a $1.2 million surplus in the savings account, roughly. And that number is always moving around because of various obligations and what the money is used for. But let's just say we got $1 million in the savings account. We lost about 1.2 last year. We're on track to probably lose half that much this year. We're trying to work through that. And of course, nobody truly understands where we're going to be this summer, but I can tell you that in addition to what's been put on the schedules, which is not particularly reliable because the airlines update their schedules on a quarterly and monthly basis, and they've shown increased service to Ithaca on several occasions. Then as we get closer, it goes away, right? But they have notified the stations, which is a change for the first time, of increased service. And basically you're talking about American and Delta starting in the April timeframe, doubling the number of flights. That goes from 1 a day to 2 a day. I think that's realistic because American Airlines has been flying in here pretty much full from Charlotte. So they've got an economic basis to make that kind of decision. United has shown flights, 3 flights might still be on their website for April, but they've notified the station that's going to be to June. So someplace in the spring quarter, we're going to begin to recover significantly. And that's why I think that the amount lost in 2021 will be significantly less than the amount lost in 2020. Now, all that said, we also have a commitment to $3 million worth of federal aid to airports to account for the loss of revenue. That's something that frankly we ride along with everybody else. That's obviously a major interest and subject nationally to keep the air transportation system up and healthy. So you add that up, there's about 4 million, and we will have committed something less than 2 million through the end of 2022. So the airport financially is in good shape. The challenge for the airport is in recovering, all the peripheral stuff, cafe, rental car, all that sort of stuff that's part of a normal, healthy airport economy is not something, first of all, the flights have to come back and then people have to start wanting to travel again and. So we're headed in the right direction. There's no reason to be concerned at this point about the future of the airport. The other thing I would say is that because of the priority under 1B for transportation workers, probably 95% of the airport has received at least one shot, and most of them have received their second. So we're pretty safe at this point from the standpoint of the impact of the pandemic. There was a time some months ago when we were very concerned because, for example, if our firefighters became ill, we'd have to shut the airport down, and that would have been a disaster all the way around. And we followed all the guidelines very religiously here, and although we had a couple of infections, they didn't spread because of how we handled the PPE and what have you. And so now everybody's been vaccinated, so the chances of an illness spreading and knocking out a number of people is much lower than it was. So that's kind of a snapshot on where the airport is. We're in good shape, and as travel and the economy come back, we'll come back with it.
Okay.
Or as we say, we're ready when you are.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks, Morey. Shall we move on? Let's go to Highway Department. Jeff.
Get that unmute button going. How's everybody doing this morning? Good to see everyone. Have a resolution and then a couple of committee only resolution report discussion, and then information item on the payment summary and quarterly highway status report. First on the agenda is authorized to execute a contract with Lobella for construction phase services. They're going to provide construction support on the Central Chapel Road Bridge. That's any day going out to bid. We've received approval to go out to bid from DOT. We're working with Finance Department to get that in the paper and advertised. That one's moving. Right behind that will be Etna Road Bridge. That's also any day now we'll be receiving permission to bid from DOT, which in turn will start the process with finance and getting it out on the street. I want to point out one aspect of this. It's contained in the memo. I don't think it needs much highlight at this time, but the original estimate from the consultant, Labella, was in excess of what we had allowed on the tip for construction phase services. That you can see down in the financial implications up piece of the memo. Line 22, the number of the estimate was 148,500. We did talk to Labella that was above our estimate. We do understand that this does happen sometime. There's an estimate done a couple years ago to get on the tip as far as this amount. They did reduce it down to what we had in the tip. And then as we track the costs, if we do hit that ceiling, we will be looking to do a supplemental agreement to extend any of the costs. I want to make the committee aware of that at this time because we're aware, but it is an estimate. We don't know. They were able to realize that the length or duration of the project they had for 8 months, they reduced that to 4 months, which is completely feasible for a bridge project. That greatly reduced it. They also cut back one office staff and realizing it's a pretty straightforward project, they were able to get that down within the budget. I just want to make the committee aware that there is that possibility. These are the sort of things that we deal with funding on the tip quite often. And since it was part of the conversation in the office and it was timely with the committee in this agreement, I thought I would make all of you aware. Other than that, we're moving forward. We're getting it out on the street to bid. And this is the piece in order to receive approval from F&I and then hopefully the legislature as far as entering into this agreement with Labella for construction services for the Central Chapel Road Bridge project.
Why don't we get this on the table? Dan, are you moving it?
Please.
Is there a second? Seconded by Glenn. Discussion. Ready to vote?
Perfect.
Dave?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
I vote yes, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
So item B here, report discussion authorization to seek construction bid Central Chapel Road Bridge. Is that pretty much what you were saying to us?
Yeah, there's these two pieces that we traditionally have historically done with F&I. It's an F&I only. If they call it a resolution, it's a discussion of making the F&I committee aware that we are ready to go out to bid. We both have Central Chapel Road Bridge and Etna Road Bridge.
Yes, let's see.
Yep. So we're looking for any questions or discussion or any issues that anyone may have, and hopefully the committee is in agreement that we have its permission to go out to bid with this project.
You didn't receive, after the public hearings on these, you didn't receive any insurmountable opposition, is that correct?
That is correct. Speaking about Central Chapel Road Bridge, we had very little, no concern. We did talk about the concern with the detour that was raised, and we reached out to the highway department as far as the detour that we were using. This is out in the Caroline area. We also talked to the various fire districts in the area, and really it didn't seem much concern was brought to light regarding any kind of temporary structure at the location and not using an off-site detour. It would have been a delay in schedule, would have been a great cost, but it's always something that you want to hear about early if it's a concern. We did hear about it kind of late, but that didn't reduce any of our work that we did to reach out specifically to the fire departments, the town highway, the town board, the town highway superintendent, make sure at that time that they were okay with us using town roads for an offsite detour, as well fire and rescue response to the various areas that would be affected by that. We didn't find any concern. I want to make that very clear. So we're okay to progress. That's the Central Chapel Road Bridge. While I'm on that subject with Etna Lane Road Bridge, which I think your question was broadly between both of them. Etna Lane Bridge, we had response in regards to pedestrian crossing during the construction. Quite a lot of that, as well as providing a pedestrian walkway across the bridge, which will be there with the wider structure. We did react to that. There is a pedestrian crossing plan for during the construction, so it will allow access to the various apartments, people in the area to get back and forth across the crossing to church, the post office, things like that. There's a lot of pedestrian activity right in that little hamlet, and with great concern and voice, we were able to incorporate at a fair amount of cost a pedestrian structure during the construction piece of that project. So to answer your question, anything that we heard about, we addressed and is included in the project.
Questions? I would just mention on the Etna Lane Road, I think I've mentioned this before, the site is so similar to the site at Freeze Road, where we've had all the issues down there. We've heard the town has actually. Both have difficult access onto Route 366. They're both heavily used. I think the pedestrian thing is probably at Etna Lane is probably due to the fact there's still a post office in Etna where people can get their mail. So it just totally amazes me that these two sites were having so much trouble with Freeze Road. And I've reported on that one before about now that they're trying to sell it, the old bridge. Unfortunately, I can't attend town board meeting tonight because I have TC3 board, but we'll hear feedback as to whether there have had any offers on this bridge or not at Freeze Road. Okay. We have capital payment summary report.
Ann has her hand up.
I'm sorry, Ann, didn't see it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Jeff, I had one question. You talked about the pedestrian access and that being at an additional cost. Is that additional cost wrapped into the project numbers we're seeing here?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad you were able to figure that out so that people could still access different areas of the town there.
Okay, Jeff, you want to walk us through the capital payment report and maybe highlight where there are things that you think we should see about changes?
I think you mean the quarterly status report is what you mean, I think. No.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay, because there is a capital.
That's the next one. Yeah, let's do the capital payment summary first. Are there any questions on that? That's on page, it's like page 7D. 7D.8. Anything? Okay, thanks for reporting that to us, Jeff. Okay, now we're on the quarterly highway capital status report. That's what I was thinking about.
I'll go through it here, highlighting any updates or changes. Certainly stop me if there's any questions along the way. As I say always, if you're reviewing this after today and you have a question, please, get in touch with me, email or whichever. This is a quarterly status report. This is normally done in January. Learned over the years to kind of hold it off and do this in February. And you'll get another one 2 months from now instead of 3 months. Just because historically committees have changed and they've been in this flux for the January meeting. So we usually even though we had it ready, we didn't bring it to you in January. This year, it seems to be mostly the same committee. So forget all that. Anyway, here's the quarterly status report. First road, we've talked a lot already about Central Chapel Road Bridge. It's ready to hit the street advertising with all the permissions and the just most recently committee approval to go to bid. Anticipate getting it out to bid and construction season. Hopefully we capture it this year. After review of the bids, we'll be back in touch to let everyone know if it's within budget amounts and things like that. Expect to hear either, good news, or maybe we got to look for some more funding, but no reason to talk any more about that. We know that happens quite often. Next page, Etna Lane Bridge replacement. It's very parallel to Central Road Chapel Bridge in the timing wise. I would expect that over the next week, we'll probably receive permission to bid from DOT, having committee authorization. We'll be working with the finance department to also get this project out on the street and accepting bid offers, or scheduling bid opening. East Hill Intersection Safety Project. This is scheduled to go to construction very soon. This is a crosswalk actuated crossing. The actual crossing is located on Ellis Hollow. The original name of the project and the funding was Pine Tree, so I'm sorry for that confusion. We've kept the name the same, even though we now at the top, let's call it East Hill Intersection Safety Project. On the capital project end of things, we call it Pine Tree, and the state end, we call it Pine Tree. It's actually one crossing on Ellis Hollow at the pedestrian path. These will be similar to what I think everyone may have seen around town now, where the pedestrian will push the button, the light will blink, and they'll be able to safely, hopefully, cross the road. But any traffic in the area will recognize that there's a pedestrian crossing at that time. I think they're a great way to add safety to these areas. This has been held up a little with right-of-way, mostly because Cornell, not to say that they were ever sitting on anything. It was just it was quite a long process working through their various departments to get approval and get the maps approved and whatnot for the little postage stamp piece of property that we needed for them to do this project. So that's all been approved by both parties. And as soon as that approval reaches the right level at DOT, we should be getting approval to go to bid. So expect this to be coming very soon as well. Ludlowville Bridge is complete. Traffic is running over it. There is some punch list items that the contractor will come back in the spring to address. They're minimal. They wouldn't really be recognized if you were to go out there. Some of it has to do with treatments of the concrete deck and things like that. But mostly it was a great project. Great to have it completed and behind us. We're working with some residents in the area to procure and locate some traffic calming devices. There's temporary ones in place now. I have received a few calls from residents in the area, but I don't know that the bridge has really changed that. I think it's always been a concern, and they're looking for that, hopefully calming traffic radar flashing devices to be permanently installed at a couple areas along this route. But it's great to have that behind us. Ellis Hollow phase 3 is complete. You saw in the payment report, a lot of final payments are on there. It was another project great to have done. It was able to endure some, find some good weather last fall and get the project completed and down and striped. This completes our Ellis Hollow Road multi-year project of 15 or so years. So that's a good thing. And we'll be looking at keeping it maintained now on the far end. That was done now 8 years ago.
I would just say that it would have cost us a lot less if we'd done the project 15 years ago like we wanted to.
For sure. The cheapest time to do any construction is today. Generally speaking, prices never get less. Station Road, we're working with DEC to get a permit. The crossing, the structures have been purchased. This was on hold. We need to get that off there. We have been working on it. We've been talking with a contractor that we have on an annual contract basis to do some work for us, small projects like this. There's some water line work entailed that kind of slowed it down, but really we need to get and work with DEC to acquire a contract or a permit, I'm sorry, to work in the stream. And once that's complete, we're ready to go on this end as far as setting up, who's going to do the work and the pieces and the pieces of the water line that is required, that's going to be improved and installed. And the box culverts are purchased and waiting for us up at Jefferson Concrete to be installed, to be set in place. So this project is really ready to go. It's on us. I don't want to make it sound like DC was been delaying it. We were really sidetracked over last year in working with DC to arrive and get this permit and the design and whatnot completed for what they wanted to see and work done in the stream. That is in process. We've reached out. So I expect, having gained some momentum again, we see something happen out there during the 2021 season as well. Morel Road, we're looking at various options and, long range options. What we have in place out there is serving the few houses that are on the dead end road. So we're trying to do the best, create and find the best option for us out there to replace that bridge at the lowest cost and still serve the community with what they're looking for. Bostwick Road, DPW facility improvements. We're at the point where we have a select list of items. This is a coordinated effort between mechanics, staff, and engineering and myself, that we sit down and realize what we have in budget and what's available. We're looking at, new floors, lighting, HV, heating ability for some infrared heating, which is very popular and is a nice heating process in garage, area mechanic shop facility. Again, same as the others, our goal for this year is to get these back going and get them completed. And I say the same for this one. The next page is Bridge New York Culvert projects. I recently heard that there's a resident engineer that works for the state he's a friend of an employee here. Actually, Nick Ensign, the deputy highway director, is friends with the area resident engineer. They're from the same town, and they happened to see each other the other day, and he's being assigned this summer for these projects, which is a kind of a good back of the scenes that, really knows that there's a commitment. We've been hearing from the state that these are going to be done this year, and hearing that and put together with what we've been hearing from the state, we anticipate these projects going out to bid and being awarded, started this summer, and it's expected to run longer and possibly go into next season, 2022 as well. And then
I reported out of ITCTC meeting that Mark Frechette from DOT was telling us that there's going to be another round now of the Bridge New York culverts and bridges grant project, and we should get our projects in. And he was making us aware that even if they weren't funded last time, put them in again, put in the new projects. Even if they don't get funded, there still may be other money that could be accessed for some of these projects. So his advice to us was stay vigilant on these projects.
that's true. And you're right that the funding was announced. We're glad to hear that another round is coming out. If you could see my desk, it's covered with bridge paperwork, and we're reviewing all of our culverts and working on getting that going. It's the same as before. Every municipality can submit 2 bridge applications and 6 culverts. At least that's what I've been seeing at this time. And we're working, I'm in contact with the towns. I forwarded to them all the information that I've received so far. I am going to be following that up with some requests for towns to do county bridges that are on town roads that are below what we're finding, what we're going to submit for county bridges. As well, we're working to get all the culverts assessed and estimated. And so it, we do have some time. It's like the applications are due middle of April. But that'll be here quick, and we're busy with a lot of other things. So we certainly want to get ahead of it all and get the paperwork done. That said, there's will be outreach to the towns, encouragement and help if needed to get those either bridge applications done if they're willing to support a project like that. As we've seen in the past, there's been other towns, town of Ulysses and town of Dryden, and also any of the culverts that they may have within their town that are on the large scale. These are culverts smaller than bridges that you basically, rule of thumb, you say you can walk through them. They're a larger size project culvert.
He said they had to be at least 5 feet.
Yeah, 5 feet or more. The minimum cost is $250,000. That is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money when you're talking about the level of design and upsizing and everything that has to go into these areas. There is reviews and back and forth on applications. The biggest thing and the biggest problem we've seen, Mark may have talked about this, is typically the estimate is low and all of these monies are capped at what you get. So anything over that capped amount is responsibility of the local sponsor. That has not been a really big issue in Tompkins County with all these projects, though we have run short and they have gone over, and the rest is our cost. But across the state, there's been some very low estimates done and created a lot of problems. So it's a pitfall or shortcoming that we don't want to see happen here. We want to make sure that the estimates are done. And in support of the process, there is a review process where there are reviewers that take that estimate and they make sure that those numbers make sense and they're high enough. But just so you know, there's a lot of work going on. We kind of hit the ground running with the announcement, and I'm in process or in outreach to the towns, working with them so that they're well aware. They'll be hearing the same things from their associations, I would expect, but I want to make sure that that we don't miss anything, and we get as many applications submitted as possible. And the city is also, they were very successful. Our last round, it was over $11 million. A lot of that money went to the city on a couple of large bridge projects. The county was successful with 2. The town of Ulysses had the Cemetery Road Bridge project. Plus, a plethora of culverts across the county were successful. So it's a good program. We definitely support it, and we'll be submitting applications prior to April 14th.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so Bridge New York, we've already talked a lot about those 2 bridges, Central Chapel Road Bridge and Etna Road Bridge. Those are the 2 Bridge New York bridges that are progressing to construction this year, plan to. Project closeout, we have our South Street Extension slope stabilization closeout going on. Ellis Hollow Road Phase 4, we're closing that one out. This page is a page that we really don't see the reason to keep it contained or going in this quarterly status report. And that's really the purpose for this, but we didn't want to just not keep showing it. And, you'd look, it's hard to show it in red as a change if it's not on here. So this is the reason for this page. These projects are complete. I've already reported that, but when you see them on these, they will probably not be contained in the quarterly status report any longer after this quarter. And then the 3 are, the third one is the Connington Road intersection project that's also closed out. And we're looking for, we received reimbursement from the town of Ithaca on their piece of the water line that we did with the project. The last page, highway bridge culverts, Carter Creek was washed out, and there's really been not a lot of interest in maintaining that as a crossing. It's in the middle of Connecticut State Forest. Fall Creek Road, that's out in a ways. It's not fully funded. It's for design only on the tip out at 2022, which is, coming there. We'll be here soon. And then Cortlandt Street over Owasco was pushed out with our capital plan. There was some other priorities in other areas that our capital plan was looking to develop. So working with some, I believe it was Katie and Orel, and then Jason working with the capital plan, we were in need to push it out. I can tell you that is not a high contender for Bridge New York project. So, but there are a couple bridges that are on the capital plan now that are top contenders. And it would be great to be successful in Bridge New York monies coming for those bridges rather than spending 100% local, and having that freedom on the capital side. Maybe we can pull this one back in and do it more recent. All that is perspective, right? We're now submitting applications. If we hear about awards, then we can go from there. But that's all I have to say on the quarterly status report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions or comments? All right. We appreciate that and keeping us up to date, and all the good work your department's been doing in our snow and slush and ice. And we think about your drivers. Yeah.
We've had a lot of long hours. They've been great. High notice, and our employees have been great this year. It's been a challenging year, and it's not going away. We have another 4 to 8 coming now. In between storms, it gives us enough time, but there's a lot of snowbanks and there's a lot of mailboxes to be fixed. And, we're doing that. We have tree crews out taking trees down. They're staying very busy, and we're just doing great. I can't say enough good things about the employees here, the work that they've been doing this winter.
Great. Please extend our thanks to them.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay. We started talking last time about committee goals with Jeff and Mike Hall, who were at that meeting. And I wanted to make sure that we gave Barbara Ekstrom and Aaron Becker a chance to talk about anything that they're thinking about for next year that we ought to be considering as part of our goals to accomplish during 2021. So Barbara, do you want to go?
Yeah. So I developed a draft work plan for my work. Jason and I will be reviewing it the third week in March, actually. But I can say that apart from, hang on one second. I've got, apart from equity, the safety and operations.
I didn't hear that, Barbara. What was that?
Pardon?
I didn't hear that. What was that?
All right, one second. So I have five goals, and one of them relates to equity. One relates to the SOUP, the safety and operations. Another relates to financial leadership. Another relates to policies and bans. And the final one, which I think is most appropriate for this committee, relates to operational management. And my goal here is to maintain stable operations, services, and programs while tracking expenses in a tough budget year. So I have a number of different objectives that go with the operational management and financial management. And I think that's probably the most important thing related to what the committee might want to consider. As you know, we spent a lot of time last year looking at options for maintaining our programs, services, and operations, and how we could balance the budget And obviously, in these difficult times, I see it as my key responsibility.
Well, thank you. Sounds like you've given a lot of thought to this, and at some point, could you send us those things and highlight them?
Well, I can only, I mean, I've got to talk to Jason because these are still subject to his review.
Sure, maybe after your meeting with Jason.
Yeah, and I do think though, for the committee, you know, as far as, you know, everything that we've been through together, making sure that we maintain stability, but yet we are managing our expenses very tightly and monitoring our revenues. I think that's key. And I can certainly send something to you in writing that just captures that one thing if you want.
A sentence or two. We don't need a
Yeah,
lot,
I'll do that.
But
That
anyway,
sounds,
how do we help you with that? Is it simply keeping track, having you report to us?
I think that what I would, yeah, I think what I would like to do is give you quarterly reports with respect to any changes. I am going to put together with my staff a work plan for the entire department that is actually a little bit related to mine. But I think that we should have that done for your meeting in, let's see, March. It should be ready for your meeting in March. At the worst case, it'll be ready in April after I go over things with Jason. But I think that you asking questions and me providing you with insights and information. I think one of the things that you should be interested in is what's going on with the recycling markets. You know, the expenses and revenues, I think, are something that if I talk to you, you're going to have questions and you're going to want to make sure I'm considering certain things.
Yes. The other thing is the solid waste fee, of course.
That's all related as a revenue. Yep.
Yeah, I know. And surprisingly, I've had less negative feedback about the increase in the solid waste fee than I anticipated. So I think we've done a pretty good job of getting information out there about the stress with the change in the recycling market. So that has been a good thing your department's done.
Okay, good. And we'll be doing also some things we already have with press releases about changes at the facility. I think the most important thing, Mike, is what you just said. And that's part of what I put in in relation to, you know, managing our operations and programs, which is a communication plan that articulates how we're going to go about sharing information with the public. And that's in the process also. We can also share any, you know, that's just a summary of a page or two. So let me put my head around this in terms of how I can provide quarterly information to the committee that's, you know, in a bullet form. That's just a summary. So that will spark some conversation.
When we recommended the increase of to $10 by $10 on the fee, we all made it clear that that was just for this year. We don't know.
Well, we have a plan.
We don't
have a
know
tentative
for sure
plan.
what's going to happen.
No,
I
we
realize
don't.
that, but what I want to say, Barbara, is that the earlier we can figure out whether that's working or whether we got to do something else, the sooner we can start making sure people are braced for it.
Well, Jason and I have talked about that real, you know, issue, and I'll be preparing a budget to submit to him in July. And once he has that budget and he goes through the deliberations, I think we're at a point where we can have that conversation, you know, at some point, the latter part of August. I think that what we can do though with the quarterly reports is tell you where we stand with our budget right now, because obviously if there's a deficit, then that's gonna, which we had anticipated there might be some deficit. So let me talk to Jason about it when I meet with him in March about how we can really share information based on what you just requested. because it is really important to know that there aren't surprises. I will tell you one piece of good news before I finish, and that is we are seeing a slight uptick in recycling markets right now for the first time in a few years. I'm not sure it's going to hold, but the fiber prices, paper, mixed paper is up and cardboard is up also, which I'm anticipating it not going much further up, but it's slightly above what we budgeted. But of course, you know, there will be other expenses that come up and we have to balance. Every month we're balancing that. Actually, we track our budget every day.
Okay, well, that's heartening to hear.
Yeah, that's true. One of the other issues that I have is policies and bans, and there is a food scrap ban that's going to be starting the beginning of next year, and I'll be updating the committee about that. I will be going to the peak committee, Ann, and I'm planning to talk to you about the styrofoam ban and the work of the environmental product procurement group. And, you know, those are things that I'll be going to your committee with.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for Barbara particularly about where we're going to be heading this year? Not seeing any. Thanks, Barbara.
Keep giving me, if you have negative feedback from anybody, we definitely really need to hear about it, and you're welcome to talk to me directly so that we can make things better. Okay? Thanks
a lot.
I think Ann had a question.
Let's see her hand, but go ahead. Yeah, she has two different hands, so go ahead,
Ann. Thank you. The only negative feedback I have is the light coming in from your window is a little bit bright, but you know, I'm glad to have, you know.
Oh yeah,
brightness.
I know.
That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah,
sorry, Barbara.
Sorry, I'll close my curtains next time.
That's okay. I had to dig deep for that one, but
yeah, okay, good. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate the time.
Aaron, you've been patient with us today. Thank you for being here. What would you like us to know about your department and what we might be thinking about for this year?
Well, as far as this year goes, it's pretty much a wash for the rest of the year. I'm looking into several things right now.
Your microphone's fading on us here.
It's fading. I always try to stay a little bit away from the microphone.
Well, that's a little better.
Because my voice carries. You could probably hear me from my office without the microphone. So I'm working on trying to figure out a way, because the way some of the state laws are written and the processes and procedures for actions to be taken against these businesses that are found to be in violation of the laws that I inspect and check out. I'm trying to figure out a way so that because there's a lot of latitude in how you can approach these situations, and of course each situation is of its own contributing factors, and so all these contributing factors have to be considered in the end result and how you go about disciplinary action with these businesses. And so what I'm trying to do is figure out the standard operating procedure that gives opportunities to the businesses to be treated as fairly as possible, but with consistency. It's going to take some research to get to that point to make sure that I understand all the little gray areas of all these laws and the procedures and how the state wants me to go about handling these things. But right now, one of the first things I need to do is finish up with my database that I have Katie Prince from ITS working on. I've got about a third of a file cabinet of business files to go through for file retention. And all that stuff going back so many years is going to be uploaded into the database so it could be readily accessible at a moment's notice. But everything beyond those days are going to be considered master summary records. And so they'll be retained by the county indefinitely. But just basically trying to get some consistency. And part of the reason for trying to figure out a consistent way in dealing with these things is making sure that it's going to be done the same way, no matter who is approaching it, whether it's me or in the eventual event, I may hire an inspector. I want to make sure that things are going to be going a certain way every time. But again, I've got to emphasize that each situation has its own contributing circumstances to it. So you get the database up and going, I get these laws and stuff figured out, get my SOP written so it's consistent, treats everybody fairly. And then at that point, I think I have a good foundation to hire up an inspector. But in doing so, I also want to make sure that I have the work there to justify hiring an FTE for this. I don't want to hire somebody up just to be on vacation all year. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of taxpayer money. I want somebody to be here doing their thing for the consuming public. That's the whole purpose of my job, and I take it seriously.
You're fading a little bit again.
Still fading?
Well, you're rocking, and I think maybe that affects it.
All right. Well, so that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't think I'm going to be submitting for an FTE in 2022's budget. But my intention is to apply for an FTE for an inspector in the 2023 budget. But to get to that point, I've got to get all this stuff figured out to create a strong foundation for consistency and making sure that justifying a person filling this position with work and what I've established for policy is all going to be good use of taxpayer money to pay fringes and salaries and things of that nature.
So when you're ready, let us know, and we'll schedule you some time on our agenda so that you can have a report to us that you'd like us to hear.
Absolutely. Well, I'm trying to do this in stages so I don't get too overwhelmed with one thing and forget about some things.
Yeah, well, it could be 2-3 months, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, well, Jason and I, he would rather, and I agree with him on this. I would rather be patient and get all my facts straight with a few things than to try to overwhelm myself with a lot of projects and not have all the information to convey and then have some of this stuff be inaccurate. I'd rather be more proactive in making sure that the information I convey is accurate. And I just don't want to be spread too thin, basically.
Gotcha. Questions or comments for Aaron? I've got Ann's hand. Now it's got her blue hand up this time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Aaron. So it sounds to me as if, your organizational plans and what you're doing right now and what you're continuing to do is very well thought out. So I appreciate, you using your skills and your forethought to doing this. One question I have is that the vehicle, I don't know if we got an update on getting a new vehicle.
I did get an update on the vehicle from the guy that I've been dealing with directly that took care of the bid process with me through this place called Capolino Chevrolet. There was an incident with the central processing unit, or a CPU, a computer chip basically, that's made in China, is from what he said to me. And there was a certain specification on the vehicle build that required this certain computer chip. So unfortunately, one of the things that I bidded in this build was not going to be able to be fulfilled, but he was able to figure out a different way to still accomplish the same result. And so we went that route. But when I originally ordered the vehicle in probably mid-December, I was informed that the estimated delivery date would be around mid-February. Here we are. I have not heard a word on it. But because of this computer chip complication, I believe this is what delayed things. and I haven't gotten any feedback on it yet, but it's in the works. It's just a matter of time. I've gotten my mobile office computer stuff. I've gotten a laptop. I'm still waiting to hear from the computing center for a mobile inkjet printer that I ordered through them. In fact, I've got to call them next week to see what's going on with it because of COVID complications. This printer has been back ordered for some time, but they're getting out there. But it's basically being trickled out into the market with the orders that have been placed. But I think everything's still on the up and up. It's just some minor delays we're having to deal with, just like everybody else is having to deal with, basically.
Okay, anything else for Aaron today? Thank you very much, Aaron. That's helpful.
Thank you, everybody.
Did we lose Arel?
And did you have a question again? I saw you raise your hand for a second, Ann.
No, I was just saying thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. There's Arel. Arel, we wanted to go to you next.
Might not have heard that.
Yeah, he might not have heard you.
Arel, did you hear us? We're ready to hear from you at this point.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm having connectivity issues as well.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Good. We're been talking about our goals for a committee for the year, and we thought we'd hear from each of the department heads, and you're up.
Okay. Well, I can tell you what I've got planned for this year as far as projects or facilities restoration projects. And so I have a really quick and short presentation, and I've not done this in a while to share the screen. Can all of you see that?
It's blank. There it is. Yes.
Okay. So let me. All right. So these are facilities restoration projects that we have planned for this year. We've started design and engineering on some of them already. We started them early or late last year and into early this year. And I'll just go building by building very quickly. At the Human Services Building, we're doing an elevator modernization and upgrade project, as well as resurfacing their parking lot. At the main courthouse, we're also doing an elevator upgrade there. That's our oldest elevator. However, interestingly enough, it's our most reliable one. But the parts are obsolete and it really needs to be modernized. At the old jail, we're also doing an elevator modernization upgrade there. Some of you that have ridden that elevator, every now and then, you know, it has issues. It's a little jerky, rides a little rough. So we're looking at making improvements there. At the mental health building, also an elevator upgrade project. We've actually spent a lot of money on that elevator. It's probably, I mean, and it's not that old as far as what we would think, but it's the circuitry has really caused a lot of issues with that elevator, and we've had it down over the last 4 years twice for at least a week. And at the Public Works facility here, we're doing a roof replacement on the last section of roofing that's remaining on this facility, which is a vehicle garage, which is the largest of all the buildings we have here, but would be actually the easiest to replace. It's one big open area. And also we would be resurfacing the visitor parking lot. And lastly, at the public library, we're going to be refinishing that exterior installation finish system, the IFAS.
We're not seeing the bottom of that, but so just tell us.
Excuse me?
We're not seeing anything below public library.
Okay, yeah, it's refinishing the exterior installation finish system, the IFAS, or drive it, we call it, which is around the perimeter of the building, but is, you know, most visible from the front and the corner. So we're going to refinish that. So those are the projects we have scheduled as part of our restoration projects, which we've taken a 2-year pause, and then we're back up this year. Also a capital project that you may recall, which is a shared project here at our facility, is the shared storage building, which we would be sharing with Soil and Water. It's a 6,000 square foot building, which we would share 50-50 for storage of materials. For us, our extra materials that we used to store, as you may recall, at the old library. And then when we sold it, we no longer had anywhere to store, materials for cold storage. And then Soil and Water will also be storing a lot of their equipment indoors. And so the site has already been located. Some preliminary grading has been done. We've already started some engineering, and we're looking at doing this as through Sourcewell, where we would not have to bid the project, similar to what we did with carpeting project a couple of years ago. So we've already actually met with a contractor that's done a lot of municipal projects of this sort in the Binghamton area.
So this is out at Bostwick Road?
Yes, yes. Some of you may recall, actually, well, let's see, Mike, you probably would be the only one that's still here, but when we originally proposed building the addition here, Bostwick Road for facilities back, in early 2000, we had as part of the bid to do a storage facility. And when the bids came in, although we really wanted to accept as an alternate the storage facility because it was a very good price, we couldn't because it exceeded the authorized funding amount for the project. So that's been what, 20 years now that we've wanted a storage facility here and have not really been able to get one.
Well, I remember all the trouble we had with the storage at the old library, so
Yeah.
no
Right.
question that we need places.
And actually, we're storing some things, not very much, over at the Tioga Street, the dental building. They have a little garage there. So we're storing a few things there.
Okay. Questions about any of those, the folks? I holler it out. I can't see your hands. Okay.
I had one question.
Ann?
This is Ann. Yes, sorry to be hogging the airtime for the meeting, but regarding the signs, so it's a slightly different topic, the signs for the legislature. Just wondering if that's still on the queue.
Oh yeah, it's coincidental because I received an email just yesterday. The signs are fabricated. The exterior signs for wayfaring and saying how to get to the entrance. And because of COVID last year, that was put on delay. And so the contractor has emailed me yesterday saying that they'd like to install them. And so they've sent us a little kind of Google map view of the area so that we can mark out where the location. There'll be a sign on Court Street indicating where the entrance is. And then there'll be a sign on the DeWitt side indicating the entrance to the building. So we will be letting them know locations, and then they'll let us know when they can do the installation. First, they've got to do UFPO for underground locations of anything, and then they'll be on site. I'm assuming it'll hopefully be in the next month.
Was there also going to be one facing the parking lot? On the park, which park? You're talking about the parking lot that the church uses, or the parking lot between that the county,
the
between the old jail?
No.
Okay, so there'll be something in the front directing you towards the back.
Yeah, for any pedestrians walking along Court Street, and then anybody coming towards the building from the DeWitt side as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Aurel.
I mean, we can entertain that once we put those two up there. If all of you see the need to put additional, we can do that. But as I said, the ones that you viewed, remember, and we had mock-ups inside the legislature chambers. Those have already been fabricated, and we've been well, it's actually about a year now that we've been waiting to install them.
Okay, great. So they're fabricated and they just need to be installed.
Correct.
Okay, and it's, I noticed that inside, when you go inside the door now, planning department has a sign on the wall. So maybe at some point, if you want to take a look at that, and we could make something inside that's similar, you know, it's just, but that says that you go up the stairs or you take the elevator to get to the county legislature or the clerk's office.
Okay, like a directory. Yes.
Right. So they have one for planning, but we don't have one for legislature.
Okay, I can talk to the same company about some ideas for that.
Anyone else? Dan?
So Arel, will there be a sign on the building itself?
Yes, actually, back before this whole COVID thing, we were going back and forth with same signage company with ideas for signage. And they proposed a few. And had I known this would come up, I would show you kind of ideas or mock-ups to see what you folks thought. The challenges were on the front, on the Court Street side, really the best place is to mount it on the building. So we told them that they had to be done. We needed to know how they were going to mount it because of the type of finish. And then on the DeWitt side of the building, the challenge there is where to put it. And so in any case, they shared, I think, 2 different options for signage, which basically was the address, the building address, and I think maybe it even said the name of the building. I'll have to refresh my memory, but I can share that at the next meeting.
That would be fine. Anyone else? Arel, I wanted to ask the Tompkins building on the Commons. How do we monitor that, and what are we doing over there? I realize we have all the different not-for-profits in there. What are our responsibilities over there?
Well, I know that if Jason was on the meeting, but I know that he's actually looking at having them kind of manage that. But in any case, we have limited responsibility there. We clean the building. So we've hired a company to do the cleaning. We do maintenance of the building. And that's not been as demanding as we thought it might be. We thought initially that it would consume a lot of our time, and it's not been too bad. We have access control. So similar to the buildings, our county buildings where you have a fob to get in and out, we issue the fobs to all of the agencies there. They fill out a form and then we issue the fobs. We program those doors, schedules when they open or unlock and lock and such. We monitor the fire alarm system. We also have a water like sensors on the basement floor. So if there is water, flooding basically, that we receive alarms. We have cameras at the exterior and the entrances at the front and the back of the building, and those are monitored. They also, like the History Center, has access to view those. And Alan, our deputy, is the one that really is really the liaison contact with the History Center there. But they have their own security within the kind of the museum area and downstairs in their archival room. So they have a security system that they monitor. We're not involved in that. We just have the PIN number to get in and out, but we don't have any security of that type. They do. So, as I said before, they've been good tenants. They really do not consume a lot of our time. But from what I understand, the plan is to have them kind of manage, the building themselves.
But with all our elevator projects, the elevator in that building, is that, I assume that's under contract. Is that up to speed?
Yeah. We have a service agreement with the same elevator company that services all of our elevators, Tyson Krupp. And so, yes, they service that elevator, as we do the fire alarm system, the sprinkler system in the building. We have an arrangement with TC3 for the dumpster in the back. Since we, rather than have two dumpsters there, we share their dumpsters and pay 50% of the dumpster fees and costs. So yeah, basically we have all similar service agreements as we would with a true county, for any other facility.
That's encouraging. Are folks done looking at the list that Arel put up so we can go back? Could you take that off the screen, please?
Yes.
There, we're back. Anything else you'd like us to think about, Arel, for this coming year?
I know last year was challenging. This year, I mean, my hope is that we'll be able to slowly, open up our buildings more and more. I mean, that's really our challenge, is knowing, we've been keeping up with the disinfecting and cleaning of the buildings and, air supply to the buildings. We just don't know, how COVID is going to impact, full use of our county facilities as we look into the future. We get asked that quite a bit. As you know, we've done several projects. More notable is what we've done at Human Services Building, create that kind of outdoor vestibule so that clients, as they come in, rather than come right into the building, they do some initial screening outside. We've done a lot of those barriers or sneeze guards for many departments. So, we would like to get back to near normal as possible, but not sure, how things will shake out as we progress through this year.
Thank you. Anything else for Arel? Any other questions? Appreciate your time this morning, Arel.
You're welcome.
Okay. So is there any other general comments we want to make about our committee goals? I sort of think we ought to probably take some time, if you want to send us any that you'd like to have. We probably ought to complete this up. Pick 4 or 5 that we're planning to do. I think Barbara Ekstrom gave us one. We know this restoration projects that Raul just talked about. We know where Aaron is talking about CDL project and any others that you think have bubbled to the surface. Why don't you shoot me an email? Okay. All right. Minutes approval. Someone want to move the minutes? Dan's moved them. Is there a second? Seconded by Ann. Discussion? Let's vote. We'll start with Dan.
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's unanimous. We've got advisory board appointment to the Hillview Road landfill. Oh, where's Dooley when we need her? But we've got Dave, so that's, no, we've got a vacancy there. I'm sorry. Who wants to, Dan's got his hand up. We'll grab him.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't even look at this page. I've been on the committee for a couple of years now, so I assumed I would continue.
Are there 2 seats?
No, I think there's only one.
Do we need to,
It looks like,
to put Dan in that again?
it looks like it. I haven't looked into this specifically, but I would recommend that we make the appointment. We can bring it forward.
Okay. Someone want to move to appoint Dan? Glenn? Dave? All in favor? Let's see. Well, let's do the other one first. Then we'll vote for them together. Oh, no action needed on the Air Services Board. Dave McKenna. Term expires 2021. Why is there no
Because
action
the
needed?
term hasn't expired yet.
Oh, okay.
Or I
I'm
think
glad he hasn't
Dan's term
expired
may
yet.
have expired 2020.
All right, someone want to move the appointment then? Glenn? Ann? Voting, Dave?
Yes.
Ann?
Yeah,
Glenn?
yes.
Yes.
Dan?
Yes,
I vote yes. Thank you, Dan.
welcome.
We've got a budget transfer for information only. Out of the Highway Department. Any questions on that? Okay. What else today, folks? Anything? Well, shall we adjourn? Thank you all. We appreciate your activity this morning. Thank you, Arel. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Kathy. Guess we're adjourned.
Mike?